The diplomatic station hovered above Veltrax like a silver crown in the sky. Below, the moon's surface shimmered with dark crystal plains and glowing rivers of blue light. It was beautiful, but cold, like the peace everyone had come to protect. Elias Merik stepped off the shuttle, his boots echoing on the polished floor of the landing deck. He wore the sharp black uniform of a human diplomat, though a faint scar along his jaw hinted at a military past. He looked calm, but inside, his thoughts moved fast. He had been summoned to the Orion Council emergency session. Tensions between the galactic empires were high. Small border conflicts, spy games, and economic sabotage had slowly chipped away at the fragile peace of the Orion Accord. As Elias made his way to the council chamber, his comms device buzzed. He glanced at the message. From unknown. Message. They're planning something. Watch the Zayari. Trust no one. Elias narrowed his eyes. No sender, no trace. But he had a feeling it wasn't just a prank. He slipped the device back into his coat and entered the grand hall. The chamber was circular, with high glass walls, and a view of Veltrax's stars. Around the room sat the 5 major powers of the Accord. Each delegate wore traditional robes or armor, depending on their culture. The humans, new to the table, sat near the edge, and in the center stood High Chancellor Xeltor, the Zayari leader. He was tall and reptilian, his scales black and gold, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Ambassador Merik, Xeltor said with a slow, mocking tone. Welcome. I trust Earth sent its best. Elias didn't flinch. Peace is what brought me here. I hope the same is true for you. Xeltor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The meeting began. Delegates spoke about trade disputes, missing cargo ships, and strange sensor readings in the outer sectors. Elias listened, but his mind returned to the message. They're planning something. When it was his turn to speak, Elias stood. There is growing evidence of military buildup in Zayari-controlled space, he said calmly, and rumors of unusual energy readings near the Horix belt. I request a formal investigation. A few council members murmured. Others looked bored. Xeltor raised an eyebrow. Accusations without proof, he said. Humans are always so suspicious. I'm not accusing, Elias replied. I'm asking for truth. The council president, a pale being from the Velderi species, waved a thin hand. This is not the time for theories, Ambassador. Let us focus on facts. Elias sat down. He knew this would happen. The council wanted calm. They didn't want to hear about threats, especially not from a human. After the session, Elias stood on a quiet balcony, watching the glowing rivers far below. Footsteps approached. It was Captain Riva, an old friend from Earth's fleet. You pushed hard in there, she said. They're not listening, Elias said. Something's coming. I can feel it. Riva looked at him. Then what are you going to do? Elias turned his eyes back to the stars. Whatever it takes. 2 days after the council meeting, the Orion Accord was shaken by disaster. A star system in neutral space, Nerith 4, went dark. The reports came in fast. All 8 colonies in the system vanished within seconds. No distress signals, no survivors, just silence. The council gathered again on Veltrax. Faces were tight, voices low. The air in the chamber felt heavier than before. A Zayari officer stepped forward. He spoke with a hard voice. We have recovered fragments of a human battleship near the wreckage. It carried Earth's fleet markings. Gasps echoed through the room. Whispers followed. Humans struck first. Reckless. Dangerous. Elias Merik stood slowly. He had reviewed the data himself. The fragments were real, but the location and damage didn't make sense. That ship was stolen 2 years ago during a pirate raid, he said. We reported it. Anyone could have planted it. Xeltor spoke next, his voice calm but sharp. Convenient, but unlikely. Humanity has always been eager to expand. Perhaps your colony simply reached too far. Elias met his gaze, and perhaps someone wanted a war. Silence followed, but the damage was done. Several council members turned cold toward Elias. One walked out without a word. Later that night, Elias sat in his quarters, reviewing surveillance data from a scout ship near Narith 4. Something odd caught his eye. The destruction wasn't natural. The star's core had been destabilized, artificially. It was a weapon, not an accident. But the data was partial, and without full proof, no one would listen. His comms buzzed again. Message: the Zayari used a solar destabilizer. The council won't believe you, but we will. Attached was a short video. Grainy, shaky, but clear enough. A Zayari vessel releasing a dark probe into the heart of the Narith 4 star. Seconds later, the video cut to white. Elias stared at the screen. He knew now. This wasn't just sabotage, it was an act of war. The next morning, Elias brought the footage to the council. They watched in silence. But when it ended, the council president shook her head. This could be faked. The sender is anonymous. We cannot accept this as evidence. Zeltor remained silent, smiling faintly. Elias felt the floor shifting beneath him. No one wanted truth. They wanted peace, even if it was built on lies. Earth's delegate leaned close and whispered, "Headquarters is ordering us to step back. Let it go." Elias said nothing. That night, walking through the empty corridors of the station, Elias looked out at the stars. So much death and no justice. If the council wouldn't act, he would. The council chamber was quiet, but the silence was tense. Elias Merik stood in the center, surrounded by leaders from across the galaxy. The glowing floor beneath his boots pulsed slowly. The Orion emblem, once a symbol of unity, now felt hollow. He had watched them ignore the warnings. He had shown them the evidence, and still they did nothing. He looked around the room. The delegates avoided his eyes. "I won't stay silent," Elias said, his voice firm. "The Zayari destroyed Narith 4. That was not an accident. That was a weapon. And if we do nothing, they will strike again." The Zayari Chancellor, Zeltor, stepped forward. His black and gold robes shimmered under the light. "Be careful, Elias," he said. "You are no longer a soldier. You are a diplomat now. Speak like one." Elias stared at him. "You used a solar destabilizer. I have proof. You killed millions. This council may be afraid of war. I am not." The room stirred. The council president tried to calm the air. "Ambassador Merik, please, if you continue." Elias raised his voice, steady and clear. "On behalf of the United Earth Alliance, I hereby declare a state of total war against the Zayari Empire." Gasps, shouts. A few delegates stood in shock. Others left the room immediately. Elias remained still. "You shattered the accord," one ambassador said angrily. "No," Elias replied. "Zeltor did. I'm just done pretending otherwise." Zeltor gave a slow, humorless smile. "So it begins." Hours later, Elias stood aboard the human flagship Resolute, looking down at Veltrax from orbit. The Orion Accord was finished. The council had disbanded. Each empire would now choose its own path: peace, neutrality, or war. Earth chose to fight. Captain Riva joined him on the command deck. "You really did it," she said quietly. "I had no choice," Elias answered. "They would have kept stalling while the Zayari burned more systems." "The fleet's with you," Riva said. "Not all of it, but enough. We're mobilizing near the Terran border." Elias gave a nod. "Good. We'll need every ship we can get." Suddenly, a warning light flashed on the console. A scout vessel had gone dark in Sector 12. The Zayari were already moving. Elias stared at the screen. "We strike back now," he said. "Fast and clean. Show them we're not afraid." 2 days later, the first battle began. A small human task force entered a contested sector. The Zayari were waiting. Blasts of energy lit the dark sky. Metal screamed, ships burst into flame, and bodies floated in the void. Elias watched from the bridge of the Resolute, issuing calm orders as chaos raged outside. Pull our flank back, lure them forward, hit their engines. It worked. The Zayari flagship was crippled and forced to retreat. But the cost was high. 3 human cruisers were gone, hundreds dead. In the aftermath, Elias stood in the medbay, watching injured crew being treated. One young officer, barely 20, reached out to him. "Did we win?" he asked weakly. Elias knelt beside him. "We're still standing," he said. "That's enough for now." The officer smiled faintly before slipping into unconsciousness. Elias stood and turned away, jaw tight. War had begun. There was no turning back now. Weeks passed. The galaxy was burning. What remained of the Orion Accord was gone. Some worlds joined Earth's cause. Others stayed silent. A few sided with the Zayari. Elias Merik worked without rest. He traveled from planet to planet, meeting old allies, war leaders, and neutral commanders. He made speeches. He made promises. He built a coalition from the ashes. "We stand together," he told them, "or we fall alone." His message was simple, and some listened. The coalition of the free systems was born. Small at first: Earth, Mars, the Ardonis traders, and 2 independent star clusters. But it was enough. Together, they launched fast strikes. They targeted Zayari supply routes and shipyards. Elias led the operations from the bridge of the Resolute. He wasn't just a diplomat now. He was back in command. One mission stood out. Coalition ships attacked a Zayari outpost on the edge of a gas giant. The battle was short. Coalition forces won. But when Elias walked through the ruined outpost afterward, he found more than wreckage. Civilians, Zayari families, injured, afraid. A child cried in a corner as smoke filled the air. Elias ordered medics to help them. He gave food, shelter, and protection. One of his soldiers protested. "Sir, they're the enemy." "No," Elias said. "The Empire is the enemy, not them." Later that night, Elias sat alone in his quarters. The battles were piling up. So were the casualties. He looked at a photo on his desk. It was old. His sister and her 2 kids, standing in a garden back on Earth. The war hadn't reached Earth yet, but it would. If he failed, it would. His comms buzzed. Message incoming. From unknown. Attachment: classified intercept. Subject: Zayari war plan. Solar probe deployment logs. He opened the file. His eyes widened. This was what he needed. Proof that the Zayari Empire had destroyed Nereth 4. The file showed ship logs, orders, and deployment data for the solar destabilizer used in the attack. The plan had come directly from Chancellor Exceltor. Elias sent the file to his command team. "This is it," he told them. "We show the galaxy the truth." They transmitted the data across known space. The reaction was swift. Worlds that had remained silent began to speak. Protests broke out in Zayari-controlled territories. A few commanders defected, but not everyone believed it. Some said the file was fake. Others didn't care. Power mattered more than truth. Still, the tide was turning. That same week, Elias received a direct message from Exceltor, a video transmission. The Zayari leader sat on a throne, surrounded by guards. His tone was calm, almost amused. "You fight well, Elias Merik," he said, "but peace never lasts, and neither will you." Elias replied with one sentence: "I'll see you on the battlefield." The next target was clear. The Kth Gate, a Zayari-controlled jump gate that connected key sectors. If Elias could take it, he would cut off their forces and force them to retreat. The final battle was coming. He could feel it, and there was no turning back. The Kth Gate floated in the cold dark like a giant ring of steel and fire. It was the last stronghold before the Ziyari core worlds, protected by heavy defense grids and elite warships. If Elias Merik could take it, he would cripple the Ziyari war machine. He stood on the command deck of the Resolute, watching the gate through the forward screen. It shimmered with energy, waiting to tear open space and send ships across light years in seconds. "All ships ready," said Captain Riva. "We're in position." Elias nodded. His voice was steady. "Begin the assault." Coalition forces moved in. The first wave, fast attack ships, darted toward the gate's outer defenses. Energy beams lit up the void. Explosions filled space with bright flashes. Shield systems blinked and failed. Hulls cracked. Ships burned. The Resolute followed, pushing through enemy fire. Elias stood at the center of the storm, giving clear, sharp orders. "Redirect shields to the port side. Pull Frigate 6 back. Focus fire on the defense node." A Ziyari dreadnought appeared, moving to block the fleet. "Target their engines," Elias said. "Don't waste firepower on the front." 2 human cruisers broke formation and struck the dreadnought from below. It shuddered, then split apart in a silent blaze. Still, the cost was high. Every minute, Elias saw red lights flash across the control board. Ships lost, lives gone. He didn't flinch, but the weight built inside him. Then, a message came through. "Direct transmission from High Chancellor Xeltor." "Put it on screen," Elias ordered. The Ziyari leader appeared, calm and confident. "You should have stayed a diplomat," Xeltor said. "You could have grown old, safe on Earth. Now you'll die out here, forgotten." Elias looked straight at the screen. "You started this war. I'll be the one who ends it." Xeltor leaned forward. "You speak of peace, but you bring war. You pretend to be noble, but you burn worlds." "I didn't burn Nerith 4, Elias said coldly. "You did." Xeltor didn't deny it. "You're right about one thing," Elias added. "Peace isn't given. It's fought for. And I'm not done fighting." He cut the signal. The battle raged on. Elias launched the second phase. Stealth ships released EMP bursts, disabling gate systems. Then a strike team boarded the control station, led by Commander Dallin, a former pirate turned ally. Fierce hand-to-hand fighting broke out inside the gate's core. Dallin's team fought through Ziyari soldiers, room by room, until they reached the power controls. Outside, Elias gave the final order. "Lock the gate down. Seal this sector." The gate collapsed in a controlled blast, cutting off Ziyari reinforcements. Their fleet, now trapped and scattered, began to fall back. Coalition ships pushed forward, forcing surrender or retreat. The battle was over. Elias stood silent on the bridge, watching the last enemy ships flee. He had won. But victory didn't feel like triumph. Later, Elias visited the medbay. Wounded lay on every bed. Some would recover. Some wouldn't. Captain Riva approached him. Her face was tired, her voice quiet. "You did it," she said. "For now," Elias replied. "But peace will never last if we don't protect it." He walked to the window, staring out into space. The galaxy was quiet again, but he knew it wouldn't stay that way. The war was over. The Ziyari fleet had withdrawn beyond their core systems. The Kth Gate lay in ruins. Coalition ships now patrolled the skies that once burned with battle. But the galaxy was changed. Elias Merik stood in the council hall on Veltrax, now quiet, half-lit, and scarred from the chaos of war. The great glass dome above him was cracked, one side blackened by smoke from earlier riots. He faced a small group of leaders, the few who had remained after the collapse of the Orion Accord. Some were allies, some were skeptics. All of them were tired. "We cannot rebuild what we had," Elias said calmly. "The Accord is gone, but we can build something better." There was silence. Then a voice from the back spoke. And who leads this better galaxy? You? Elias shook his head. No, I've fought enough. I came to stop a war, not rule its end. He stepped aside, allowing others to speak. He didn't want power. He only wanted peace that could last. That night, Elias walked through the lower districts of Veltrax. People were cleaning up after the destruction, sweeping broken glass, patching lights, serving hot food to the displaced. A child waved to him. He smiled faintly and nodded back. These were the ones he had fought for. Not the politicians, not the flags. Just people who wanted to live without fear. Later, on board the Resolute, Captain Riva found him alone on the observation deck. "You really think peace will hold?" she asked. Elias watched a nearby sun blink over the moon's edge. "No," he said quietly, "not forever. But maybe long enough for people to breathe again." She handed him a datapad. "Reports say some Zayari commanders want to negotiate. Others might rise up again." "They always do," Elias replied. "That's why we stay ready." He tapped the glass, bringing up a new star map. "And if it comes again, we don't wait." The next day, Elias sent out one final message. It was transmitted to every known system. This war began because the truth was ignored, because fear was louder than reason. We paid the price in blood, but we still stand. If peace is to survive, it must be protected, not by silence, but by courage. We are not conquerors. We are not victims. We are defenders of peace, and we will not be silent again. Elias Merik, United Earth Alliance. As the transmission echoed across the stars, Elias stood alone, watching the horizon. The stars were quiet, but he would never stop listening. Not now. Not ever.